My name is Helen Anderson, and I grew up in what I believe to be the perfect American family. We weren't wealthy at first, but we were content with just mom and dad living in our modest starter home. However, after dad's tragic death, mom betrayed me by choosing her new husband's family, placing me for adoption, and erasing me from her life. My father, James Anderson, was the hardest working man I've ever known. He built his transportation company from the ground up, beginning with just 2 trucks and progressively growing into a prosperous enterprise. I recall how, in the early days, he would occasionally return home covered in grease because he insisted on doing the truck maintenance himself. Her name is Mom Sarah, though I can hardly bring myself to call her that anymore. She was a restaurant manager at the time, was genuinely competent at her job despite her constant complaints. "One day, James," she would say, pushing food around her plate during dinner, "I want to be a proper housewife. All these late nights are killing me." Her father would simply smile and pat her hand, telling her that she would soon be able to quit, and he kept his word when I was 9 years old. Several big contracts later, we were moving into this gorgeous 2-story home in one of the best neighborhoods in town. I had a huge, bright room with windows overlooking our backyard, and I went crazy decorating it with fairy lights all over it. Pale purple walls, and this enormous bookshelf my dad built himself. He spent a whole weekend on it, cursing under his breath. When he believed I couldn't hear him, he breathed. But when it was finally over, he was beaming with pride. Mom quit her job soon after we moved, just as she had always wanted to. But instead of taking care of the house as she had claimed to want to, she was rarely home, either for lunch with the girls, a quick shopping trip, or a late appointment at my salon. Dad didn't seem to. Although he was too busy with his business, he always found time for me. Every Sunday, we went for ice cream, and he listened to all of my stories about school and friends as if they were the most important things in the world. Our last ice cream date was on a bright spring day right before my 11th birthday, when my dad told me that one of his drivers had called in sick. "Not this time, princess. It's just a quick overnight trip, and I'll be back before you know it." I remember giving him an extra tight hug that night before bed. "Love you, Dad. I guess I'll have to do the run myself tomorrow," he said, finishing his cone just like the old days. "Can I come with you?" I asked, excited at the thought of a road trip with Dad. He laughed and ruffled my hair. When Dad departed before dawn the following morning, I heard him start his truck and pull out of the driveway. My mother was still asleep, so Maria, our nanny, made him coffee and packed him a lunch. That was the last time I ever saw my father, alive, and the phone call arrived at 3:47 a.m. I am aware of this because the next few hours are a blur in my memory, with police officers in our living room holding me tight while Mom paced back and forth, talking on the phone in tones, with words like massive collision and died instantly floating. I was awake and unable to sleep because of that weird feeling in my stomach. I heard Mom scream from her bedroom, followed by the sound of something breaking, probably her bedside lamp. Everything about the funeral is hazy in my memory. I remember staring at the closed casket, not really believing Dad was inside, while Mom put on quite a show. Dad's truck had collided with a semi that had jackknifed across the highway. They said he didn't suffer, as if that was supposed to make it better, somehow. When I first met Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia at the funeral, they looked like complete strangers, but Uncle Robert had Dad's eyes with the same kind of crinkly corners when he tried to smile at me. Looking back, I now realize how theatrical it was, but at the age of 11, I believed that was just how adults dealt with grief. With tears in his eyes, Helen said, "I'm your father's brother, and I'm so sorry we're meeting like this. Why haven't we met before?" I remember asking him, directly, "Remember, only kids can be a shadow. Father and I had a fight many years ago, but that didn't matter now. I had to come say goodbye to my little brother." And after the funeral, my mother's grief subsided, like morning dew. Within weeks, she was meeting with her father's lawyers, taking over his business, and acting as though she knew everything there was to know about managing a transportation company. She began using words like modernization and restructuring, but it was clear that she was making this up as she went along. I spent the majority of my time with Maria, who would sadly shake her head whenever while preparing my lunch one day. Maria muttered, "Those poor drivers haven't been paid properly in weeks." She was correct. Dad's employees began leaving one by one. These were men and women who had worked for him for years, some since the beginning. I remembered their names and faces. Mom came home with shopping bags from expensive stores. Your mother's spending money like water. They used to bring me small gifts from their roots, but now they were leaving, unable to provide for their families, using excuses and promises. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom sold what was left of his business for a small portion of its original value, acting as though she had made a wise business decision, but everyone knew that she had destroyed Dad's life's work after the "it was better than coming home to an empty house." So I spent a lot of time at the library after school. Mom would occasionally breeze in late at night, smelling of wine, hardly acknowledging my presence. Sale of Dad's company, Mom was rarely home, always out somewhere, and I spent most of my time with Maria. She had started teaching me Spanish, saying it would come in handy someday. "Still up?" she would say, as though surprised to find me in my own house. Then she would vanish into her room, and I wouldn't see her again until the following evening, if at all. Then, on Sunday night, I was working on my homework in the kitchen when Mom came running in the door, laughing like a teenager. She wasn't by herself, Helen, sweetie, and she called out in a voice full of fake excitement, "Come meet Richard." Richard was. His mother, Helen, said, clutching Richard's arm like a lifeline. "He's your new father. We're going to be a proper family again." "I already had a proper family," she said, her voice trembling, "and I already have a father." Richard's fake smile. Richard was tall and wore an expensive suit that somehow still looked cheap. After a week, Richard turned to his mother, Gloria, his sister, Janet, and his 12-year-old niece. He said, "Listen, young lady," in a voice that sounded like stern. "Your mother and I are married now, so you need to accept that and show some respect." "You're not my father," I spat back. "You'll never be my father. See what I mean?" Madison had also moved in, and they took over the house like an invading army, moving furniture around and altering the decor that Mom and Dad had chosen together. Mom didn't seem to mind, and she and Janet became best friends right away, chattering and shopping for hours. Gloria took over the kitchen, griping about Maria's cooking until Mom fired her, and I lost the only person who still cared for me in that house. But then came the last blow. One day I came home from school to find Madison in my room, the one where Dad had built the bookshelf with the purple walls and fairy lights. "What are you doing?" I demanded, and Aunt Sarah said I could have this room. Madison grinned. "I need space for all my things. Get out." And I screamed, "This is my room." She threw my books off the shelves and taunted me, saying, "Your mom says you're moving to the small room down the hall." Richard and Mom ran in and pulled us apart. And Helen's mother yelled, "How dare you go to your new room right now? No, this is—" I lost it, lunging at Madison and falling to the ground in a tangle of arms and legs as she scratched at my face and I pulled her hair. They locked me in the tiny guest room for 2 days, only allowing me to leave for school and bathroom breaks. My books and belongings were piled in boxes in the corner, and Dad's bookshelf was thrown out with the trash through the wall. And I could hear Madison say, "Your father is dead now." Richard grabbed my arm roughly. A few weeks after the room incident, I was heading to the bathroom late at night when I heard voices downstairs. I snuck to the top of the stairs and stayed in the shadows, listening to music in my old room while Mom laughed with Janet downstairs as if nothing had happened. Richard said that the girl was getting harder every day and that she was disturbing our family. "Harmony, have you?" When the adoption mom asked, I thought about finding her another home, but my heart stopped. Her thoughtfulness made my blood run cold. I guess that could work. She's still young enough, and it would be better for everyone. Janet added that Madison is scared of her because of that attack. And to be honest, she doesn't belong here anymore. I hurried back to my room, buried my face in my pillow, and told 2 months later, my 13th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting, much because birthdays hadn't been celebrated since Dad passed away. But to my surprise, Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia showed up at the door. "Happy birthday, Uncle Helen." I told myself that they couldn't mean it because my mother wouldn't give me away. Robert said, "I'm glad you're here. There's something I need to discuss." His eyes narrowed as Richard passed by, ignoring us entirely. Mom had prepared a hurried dinner, likely out of embarrassment that her father's brother might criticize her. The tension around the table was so high that a knife could cut through it. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I realized that the conversation I had overheard hadn't been just talk after all, as I had assumed since you and Patricia. Helen isn't happy here, Mom continued, not looking at me. And honestly, we're not happy either, she said. I've decided to put her up for adoption. Uncle Robert's chair scraped back so violently on my birthday that it fell over, and we'll take her. He thundered, his face red with rage. And you, Sarah, are to blame. Don't have children of your own, Mom, she said casually, as if she were talking about the weather. If you want to take her, if not, I'll start looking for other families. Richard began to stand up, but after receiving a look from Uncle Robert, he sank back into his chair. Uncle Robert said, "Please help Helen pack her things. We're leaving now." Patricia put an arm around my trembling shoulders and ushered me upstairs, where we swiftly packed, discarding my clothes and the few things I had left. I cried so much that I could hardly see that everything would be all right, sweetheart. Aunt Patricia continued whispering, "We've got you now." I left the house without turning to face my mother. She didn't try to stop me or say goodbye. The last thing I heard as Uncle Robert shut the car door was Madison asking if she could have my new room as well. At first, the transition wasn't easy. I was a little lost when I woke up in my new room at Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia's house. But as soon as I smelled Aunt Patricia's coffee and bacon coming from the kitchen, I realized that I was in my real home. The adoption process went swiftly, and Mom signed away her rights without hesitation, which hurt at first but felt like a blessing in the end. Helen, Uncle Robert said, "One morning over breakfast, we enrolled you in Riverside Prep. It's a better school than your old one, and we think you'll like it there." I did enjoy it there, free from the constant stress of my old home life, and I began doing better in classes. My teachers noticed, and so did I. Robert and Aunt Patricia officially became parents, formalizing what was already true in my heart. My new parents supported me not only financially but also emotionally by attending every school function, academic awards ceremony, parent-teacher conference, debate club event, and competition. They were proud of me even when I lost and encouraged me to try new things like taking piano lessons, going to summer science camps, and volunteering at the local animal shelter. Interest and involvement gradually diminished as the hurt of my mother's rejection gave way to the warm certainty of being truly loved. I stopped thinking about her and wondered if she ever considered me because my new life was too happy and full for those old hurts to matter anymore. When high school graduation arrived, I had the loudest cheering section in the audience. Not just Uncle Robert, and at my graduation dinner, Aunt Patricia, along with their entire extended family, who had welcomed me as their own, told me that they had been saving for your college fund since the day you moved in with us. They had saved enough money to send me to any school I wanted to attend, and I decided on State University's business school, with the intention of majoring in investment management college. Was amazing, and I threw myself into my studies with the intention of making them proud. When I was a junior intern at Goldman Sachs, Patricia casually mentioned that she had met your birth mother at the grocery store. She has a son, and she said, "They're still in your father's old house with Richard's family." I nodded, surprised. I was only mildly curious that life seemed like a far-off dream that was now happening to someone else. After graduating, I got a job at Morgan Stanley, and my first paycheck made me gasp because it was more than I could have ever dreamed of earning. The day I received my first paycheck, I went straight to the jewelry store where Uncle Robert had been wearing the same. When I gave them their gifts, Aunt Patricia began crying, and Uncle Robert's hand trembled as he put on his new watch. "You shouldn't have spent your money on us," he protested weakly. "Because who else would I spend it on?" I asked, hugging them both. Aunt Patricia had been eyeing a particular pearl necklace in a local store window for years. 6 years passed quickly after college, and I rose through Morgan Stanley's corporate ranks, receiving promotion after promotion until I was leading my own team. Every accomplishment felt sweeter because I could share it with my parents, whom I now called Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia without hesitation. The apartment arrived first, a stunning two-bedroom condo after a year of dating. Michael proposed during a weekend trip to the beach, and I said yes before he even finished. Mom sobbed when we told them, and Dad pulled Michael into a bear hug and said, "Welcome to the family, son." It was a nice part of the city, and Mom helped me decorate it. Dad insisted on checking all the paperwork before I signed the mortgage. As Dad and Michael bonded over budget spreadsheets and vendor contracts, Mom and I threw ourselves into wedding planning. On the other hand, I received a message on Facebook that said, "Helen, sweetheart, I've heard about your upcoming wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I'm still your mother. I've changed, and I want to make things right." My hand trembled as I read the message, and I called Mom right away. I saw Sarah yesterday, and when I told her about the message at the grocery store, she didn't ask about you once. However, when I mentioned how successful you've become and how you're getting married, well, her eyes brightened in a way that I didn't like, Mom. Pause before continuing. But there's more. Sarah's husband's niece Madison got pregnant, married a deadbeat, and moved back in with her husband. The whole family is always fighting, and Sarah was complaining loudly about money problems in the middle of the store. I felt a knot form in my stomach, so I looked at her and said, "I need money." Before answering, my fingers lingered over the keyboard for a while as memories of the room filled my mind. She gave away my birthday and threw me away during the years of silence when she had every chance to contact me but didn't. Eventually, I typed, "Sarah, to clarify that you are not my mother and that you lost that right when you gave me away on my 13th birthday. I have loving parents." The morning of my wedding dawned perfect and clear, and Michael's parents had rented the venue. I hit send, immediately blocked her, and felt lighter in some way, as if I'd finally put down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. "I don't want you at my wedding, I don't want you in my life, and don't contact me again." I was in the bridal suite with Mom applying the final touches to my makeup when there was a knock at the door. Miss Anderson, one of the security guards, appeared uneasy. "I apologize for disturbing you, but there is a situation at the front gate. Mason Creek Estate is a stunning historic property with expansive gardens and a restored Victorian mansion." As I stood carefully in my wedding dress, I said, "Helen, you don't have to start, Mom." But I shook my head. "Yes, I do." And then I walked to the front gates, my wedding heels clicking against the cobblestone path. Some people insisted that they knew you were a man, woman, and teenage boy, and somehow my stomach dropped. I knew exactly who it was, and I'll handle this. When Sarah saw me grabbing the iron bars of the gate, she screamed, "How dare you not invite your own mother to your wedding?" and let us in right away. I took a moment to really look at her. She had aged poorly. Her designer clothes were clearly from last season, her makeup was too heavy, and her hair looked exactly like Madison Helen's. Sarah Richard, and a boy who must have been my half-brother, but he looked exactly like her. Richard needed a touch-up badly because he looked thinner and more haggard. The pricey suit was swapped out for something cheap, and Richard should have been the one to walk you down the aisle. Sarah went on to say in a high-pitched voice, "He is your father," which made me laugh heartily and reverberated throughout the courtyard. "My father is the man who locked me in a room for 2 years. You can't act as though we don't exist. Take a look at how you're living this lavish wedding, your big job, and your expensive clothes, while we're struggling to make ends meet and are drowning in debt. The man who helped you throw away your own daughter is your family," and Sarah's voice cracked. The real reason for this dramatic appearance was Sarah was practically foaming at the mouth, and after everything we did for you and everything you did for me, I cut her off. "You are not my family, and let's be clear, you gave up that right years ago. My parents are in that house. They are the ones who raised me, supported me, and loved me without conditions. We need their help. I turned to the security guard and said, "These are strangers who are trespassing. Please remove them from the property. They are not welcome here. You can't do this." To which Sarah screamed as the guards advanced. "I'm your mother," I said firmly. "But you're just the woman who gave birth to me, but there's a difference." I ignored her cries and left, holding my head high. When I got back to the bridal suite, my mother was waiting anxiously, asking if I was okay. I took a deep breath and grinned, and I realized that I've never been happier. That chapter of my life is finally over. A knock on the door prompted Dad to poke his head in. The wedding march started playing as we got closer to the garden ceremony, and I could see Michael waiting at the altar, beaming at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm ready, Princess," I said, adjusting my veil one last time in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't that scared 13-year-old girl anymore. I was strong, successful, and truly loved. The man who taught me to drive, helped me with my college applications, and showed me what a father's love truly means was the one who gave me away. The ceremony was flawless, and Michael and I exchanged vows under a blue sky with flowers and the people who truly loved us. The guests turned to watch as Dad walked me down the aisle. When my husband and I first got married, everyone cheered, and the reception went on long into the night. Dad gave a heartfelt speech that made everyone cry, and then he made everyone laugh with embarrassing stories from my college years. Mom danced with Michael, and I couldn't stop smiling as I danced with Dad. That was 6 months ago, and Michael and I had just returned from our honeymoon. I honestly tell people that my real parents are the ones who chose me, loved me, and helped shape who I am today. I don't know what happened to Sarah and her family after the wedding, and to be honest, I don't care because I heard through the grapevine that they had to sell. I live in Greece, where life has settled into a wonderful new normal. My story isn't about being betrayed or abandoned. Rather, it's about finding your true family, the people who love you because they want to, not because they have to. It's about choosing happiness over bitterness, forgiving others over anger, and moving on, rather than looking back. My name is Helen Anderson Mitchell. Dad's old house, but that's no longer a concern of mine, currently, and I'm so happy with how things are going. Every morning I wake up next to a man who genuinely loves me, and every Sunday we eat dinner with my parents who choose me and have never let me go.